Привет, меня зовут Laura и это мой канал de YouTube Yaziki с Laura. Hello everyone, my name is Laura and this is my channel Languages with Laura, and in today's video we are going to talk about different things that you can do to take your language learning to the next level. So in this video, I'm going to go over some ideas and mostly activities that you can do to expand on certain elements of language learning that you have already established at this point. So to make you a little more well-rounded, a little more well-versed in your language so that you can bump up from maybe a B1 to a B2 or C1 to C2 or whatever it is to help you be more well-rounded and more equipped in your target language. So the first one is your vocabulary. Things I would do to suggest increasing your vocabulary, especially if you think you've really mastered all of the vocab words and phrases that are common in the language that you use in everyday conversation, that you read about, that you write about. If you feel like you have all of that down, but you're not quite sure where else to go in order to learn more words, because there are always more words to learn in our target language. It feels never ending. But if you feel like you have a good handle on the elements that you are consistently using, something that you can do to take your vocab to the next level is specifically seek out more adjectives, because when you're first learning a language, you learn how to say, it's a great, fantastic, horrible, bad, and that's kind of it. So you can figure out what are more adjectives or adverbs that you can expand to increase the diversity of your sentences, but also lengthen them and be more specific within a sentence. Another thing you can also do is to find very specific names for things. If you like gardening and you know how to say flowers, maybe stem, leaves, we'll start looking into other kinds of or other names for flowers in your target language. You can really start to get into the nitty-gritty details. If you've already learned food, you know some fruits and some vegetables, start to get into the elements of food so that you can have a deep conversation with someone about it. Here you can really play into your interests as well. Like for example, with my Spanish, I knew how to talk about cakes and like cupcakes and cookies in general, but then when I started working in a bakery and there was a woman from Mexico who was also working in this bakery, and she was giving me all these nitty-gritty little names for things in the kitchen and for specific ingredients, and it just like increased my kitchen vocab like you would not believe. And so I could get by just fine in a conversation about food before that, but now it is something completely different. So just really do a deep dive into a topic or a thing or description, and that can help. A great way to do this is by watching kind of competition shows or reality TV or something that is geared towards that topic in your target language. Another thing is with grammar. It's one thing to learn all the grammar rules, but to truly be comfortable and understand their limits and what you like almost can get away with versus not, if that makes any sense, I'll explain in a minute, is by reading poetry. For example, you can learn the grammar and you can use the grammar, but until you see it in all different types, how it's used, you might not fully understand what you can and what you cannot do with it. And especially for something like poetry where things can be played around and there are different elements that play into it, it can really help kind of expand your understanding of something, and just really practice it and get comfortable, and then it can help make your speech and your writing a little more interesting, a little more artistic. And it just, for me, it just went from, oh yeah, using the subjunctive, I know how to do that, it's not fun, but I know how to do it, versus like if there's a poem with subjunctive in it, it gives a new feeling to the grammar itself, and it kind of brings a new interest to me, and so because of that, I'm much more likely to use the subjunctive. For increasing your writing, I have two kind of activities that you can do to just help get you into the habit of writing. If you're someone like me where a lot of times you're learning the language to like speak and listen to someone, I still want to be able to learn how to read and write, but I don't have necessarily something that I'm working towards in those areas. So I would say to help, do some journaling or some reflections. This is a pretty common tip that I've seen a couple other people talk about, and I didn't really think it would be that useful until I actually tried it out. So if you have heard people say, oh yeah, you know, journal every day in your target language, or just write a paragraph about your day, or do like a habit tracker or something that you normally do do that in your target language, and it will help. I think it does. And then the second thing, this also helps with your reading, is to translate children's stories or translate other stories, because you kind of dive a lot deeper into both your language and your target language, if those are the two that you're translating between. You really dive deep into the understanding of both of them when you translate. With children's stories, it can be a little bit lighter, but it's just something that I think is a lot of fun, doesn't take up too much time, but it gets me exercising my target language. It gets me writing in the target language, or reading if I am taking something from the target language and putting it into my native language, English. It just gets me going, and I just find that to be a lot of fun and satisfying. I have Le Petit Prince, which is a story in French, de Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. And I actually also have it in English too, The Little Prince, but I like to go through parts of this at a time and just do my own translation. And then when that's done, I can go back and compare it to the English translation and see what was different, maybe figure out why it was different, and how I can reconcile that in my brain. And then the final thing are some activities for speaking. I do have a whole other video on how to improve your speaking, so you can always go back and watch that video. But some other activities I would recommend to just get yourself more confident, get yourself using it more in your language lessons or even outside of your language lessons would be obviously singing. I feel like music is such a fantastic tool for language learning, because it's great listening practice, and it's kind of like poetry, where you're hearing these different grammar types used in a very artistic way, in a very creative way, which helps me remember them and help me identify them. But if you're also singing along, you are getting yourself more familiar with the sounds, with the words, with the phrases, and that can also help a lot with your accent as well. Again, I have another video on accents, so feel free to check that out. Another fun one are tongue twisters. These are obviously a pain in the butt. That's kind of the whole point of them. But finding tongue twisters in your target language can be very fun and very interesting. El vino vino, pero el vino no vino. Pablito clavó un clavito. Pablito clavó un clavito. Okay, I can do those. Oh no. Tres tristes tigres tragan trigo en un trigal. Tres tristes tigres tragan trigo en un trigal. No, that was right. Tres tristes tigres tragan trigo en un trigal. What are some of the sounds that are repeated? Because we all struggle in our own native language. Like, everybody stutters every once in a while, or would have a lot of fun doing these tongue twisters, so give it a try. One of them is that when you are listening to something in your native language, whether it be a TV show or a podcast, movie, whatever, pay attention to some of the exclamations or some of the filler words, because you sound so much more fluent and like you know what you're saying when you use filler words. No matter what you're thinking about, if you are in the middle of a sentence and you don't know A, what you want to say just at all in general, B, what the word is that you're trying to say, or C, if you're trying to figure out how to conjugate something, like if you're just stuck in the middle of a sentence, it sounds so much better to say pues, in Spanish, like to say pues bueno, rather than because they don't use that's an English thing. Or like, try and find those filler words in your target language to sound more fluent in it, and it helps you just keep in the mindset of that language. Because if I'm sitting there in the middle of a Spanish sentence and I stop and say I kind of get flipped backwards almost into English. But if I stick with like pues, como, bueno, I'm still in it, you know? So find those filler words, and then finally also paying attention to tone and intonation. Even if you're not learning a tonal language, there are still patterns of tones and speech that are more natural sounding than other patterns. I remember my French teacher going through this with me, like how a question goes versus a statement that is this long or a statement that is this long. And you just sound so much more like you know what you're doing and what you're talking about if your voice goes up in tone when it's supposed to in that language. Again, this is true for a lot of languages that aren't tonal. And I don't know how other people feel about this. I do not speak Korean. I have never studied Korean, but I have listened to a lot of Korean and Korean speakers in my life. I used to live with a Korean couple that did not speak, the wife did not speak English. She did not speak Russian. We did not have a language in common. She only spoke Korean. And so she would talk to me a lot, and we would get by, you know, we'd figure it out. But I could definitely hear there are certain patterns of the tone and intonation of when she spoke that I imagine when somebody who is learning Korean does not do that, it sounds a little off-putting. Even though Korean is not technically, officially, a tonal language. So that is also something, and again, this can be learned through like listening a lot, but something like pitch and tone, I like to see it, and so you can find it a lot of times in textbooks or other kind of resources that are online but are meant to be written down or visual. They'll have like the little line that I've been doing here of when your voice goes up, when it goes down, kind of the inflection and everything like that. So just understanding that and how it's different than maybe your native language can also help make you sound more fluent and can really take your speaking to the next level. Спасибо большое, все, everything. Thank you so much, everyone. Это все. That is what I have to say for this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Это очень хорошо, спасибо. And if you are interested in language learning, comment, make sure you subscribe. I've got lots of language learning and travel content. I have plans for some travel content as I will be traveling this summer. I dropped a little hint in a previous video. The languages, I'm going to multiple places, and the languages that I am focusing on right now for those places are Russian and French. So let me know where you think I'm going this summer, and I will have travel vlogs up. So again, make sure you are subscribed to keep up with those. And I have other social media linked down below, especially my Instagram. My Instagram is really a lot of travel pictures. So if you like that kind of stuff, please feel free to follow me there. Again, спасибо большое. Thank you very much. And until I see you all in the next video, пока!